Thank you for tuning in to DonBest.com and the MMA Insiders. I'm Frank Trigg in Las Vegas, Nevada, and down there in Ohio is Nick Kalikas. Nick, are we ready for a UFC 161 Evans versus Henderson, this time in Winnipeg, Canada?
Yeah, I'm really excited. Co-main event, main event, along with a good, solid card. So really excited for this event.
And I apologize to Stipe because I always say his name wrong, his last name wrong. Co-main event is Stipe Miocic versus Roy Nelson. Did I get the last name correct?
I think it's pretty close. Miocic, somewhere around there, so I think we're close.
So forgive us, Stipe. I promise you, I'm trying my best. I just have a hard time with yours. Miocic comes in with an MMA record of 9-1. Nelson 19-7. The problem with Nelson is he can't win a decision to save his life. 8 of his last losses, 7 have been decision. I like Stipe in this one. I really like that the fact that he can use his wrestling ability to kind of keep Nelson off, even though Nelson does have wrestling. But I'm worried about the Struve fight that we just saw with Stipe. He fell apart cardio-wise. Nelson also lacks a lot of cardio, but I'm not sure how this one's going to pan off. Nick, what's the line? How do you see this fight breaking down?
Well, current line is around -2.5 to 1, so -250 for Roy Nelson. And the betting public out there overall, the general action, they're supporting Nelson a little bit more. They believe that Stipe is possibly going to get knocked out, and the streak of Nelson's KOs are going to continue. Man, you can't really bank it. He does have that devastating knockout power, but to me, he's kind of been overrated for a while. He's, a top 5, top 6 heavyweight, I should say. He's not. There's nothing light about him at all by any means. But he's a top 10 heavyweight. He's been for a while. I just think he's not that talented. Like you said, beyond the knockout punch. I mean, if the fight goes in round 2, round 3, he got dominated by Fabricio Verdum. He got dominated by Frank Mir. Now, granted, those are definitely top-notch heavyweights as well. But I think there is a formula there to beat him for sure. And Stipe could be the answer. It's going to be tough though, because Stipe does have cardio issues, as you said. I heard that his training camp has gone well, and those issues should not be there. They should be addressed. But we'll see. I mean, you hear a lot of things.
Now, we got to remember, I'm always a wrestling kind of guy. I always push towards the wrestlers. And Nick, isn't Stipe from Ohio? So you're leaning on him also because he's from your home area?
Yeah, definitely. I'm a little bit more biased towards Stipe, of course, because we got a lot of mutual friends. He's from Ohio, so I want him to pull out the win, no doubt. And it is a terrible kind of matchup if you think about it for him, because Nelson is another guy that has decent wrestling, has BJJ, and has that knockout power. So a lot of people are thinking it's going to stay on the feet, and Nelson's going to catch him and knock him out. I think Stipe is going to fight smart, come in with a good, solid game plan, and he could probably sneak out the decision win, or maybe even a late stoppage. Roy is definitely hard to stop. I mean, JDS couldn't even stop him, for Christ's sakes, but nothing's impossible, and I think with a smart game plan, it could be done.
Last thing on Nelson before we move on to the main event. Nelson got beat by Frank Mir, and Frank Mir is known to have horrible cardio issues, but Frank looked great against Roy Nelson. But Frank was not in great cardio shape during that fight. He just had better cardio than Roy did. So when it comes to a cardio standpoint, I think Stipe's cardio, even though he has some suspect cardio, will be a little bit better than Roy Nelson's. But I'm leaning towards Stipe, and I'm taking Stipe to win a decision. That's what my bet's going to be. Hopefully it pulls off so next week you guys aren't yelling at me. Moving on to the main event, Rashad Evans, Dan Henderson. This one is a tough one for me to pick, but I'm always leaning towards Henderson. I've known him for 18 years. We've been friends, and this fight, I think, is just a better matchup for him than the other guys he's had as of late. Evans, MMA record, 17-3-1. Hendo, MMA record, 29-9. Nick, what's the line, and do you really see Evans trying to pull this fight together?
Well, virtually a pick 'em right now with a slight edge towards Evans. It's -120, so the comeback around -110 right now for Hendo. I think it's one of those fights that really I could see playing out either way, because Henderson definitely has that knockout power. They both have great wrestling, as we all know. A lot of people, are expecting this fight to stay on the feet. So really it depends how it's scored, because Henderson's probably going to be the one plotting forward, being a little bit more aggressive, maybe not throwing as much, obviously. And Rashad's probably going to be circling around using his footwork, throwing a little bit more. So it depends how the pace goes of the fight and how the judges want to score the fight. Are they going to give it to the guy that's landing more? Or are they going to give it to the guy that's coming in forward a little bit more aggressive? Now, as far as wrestling goes, like I said, it's going to be close, but I actually give the slight edge to Rashad in the wrestling department.
I actually do too, because he's just more aggressive on his feet. He has more of a freestyle, collegiate style of wrestling for MMA, so he attacks your legs a lot more, which we saw with Lyoto Machida against Dan Henderson when he got the foot sweep. Henderson went down at the first round, at the very end of the first round, because he was standing flat-footed. There's nothing athletic about how Dan Henderson steps forward. And at 42 years old, he is the older guy. But let's not forget that he is like Couture, where he doesn't take much damage. He's not that beat up. He knows how to fight, and he's very, very smart inside the cage and ring. He knows what he's doing. And with Evans, the way he looked against Nog, I really think that Henderson's going to be able to push the pace, win the judge's decision, because he's always moving forward. Excuse me. And I also see the only way that Evans can win this fight is by decisioning Dan Henderson. He can't knock him out. He's not going to be able to submit him. I can see Henderson winning a decision and or knocking out Evans. Am I about right in that assessment?
Actually, yeah. I mean, you can't argue that at all. I believe that Dan Henderson can win by decision and he can get the knockout because if anything, out of the two guys, both of them have solid chins. I know Rashad's been knocked out by Machida before, but overall, he's had a solid chin. He's been rocked a few times. Henderson, man, the guy, I don't even have to talk about his chin. It's probably one of the best chins ever in MMA. So I think both these guys can survive long enough, but Henderson does have more ways to win. He can knock him out. If there's going to be a knockout, it's probably going to be Henderson, or he can win by decision. But don't count out Rashad. He's very smart. He doesn't want to lose 3 in a row. I think the time is him to come back and step in there, get an impressive win over Dan Henderson. So I'm going to lean towards Rashad getting a decision here.
All right, well, there you have it. It's another edition of MMA Insiders here on DonBest.com. That is Nick Kalikas. I'm Frank Trigg, and we'll see you next time.